Aura, defined as a sort of force field being generated at an event, a place, or a person that is almost like a own version of an atmosphere around somebody. If I walk into a room, I have the aura of a self-employed YouTuber who talks about random stuff in his upstairs middle room and people just weirdly listen. Whereas somebody like... We're going to be getting into a lot of these. We're going to be talking about historical figures and how much aura they have, okay? You watch this channel because it is Ethan on Everything, and you're right, it is Ethan on Everything, okay? Leave the... I don't think anybody's going to be offended here. If you get offended by this video, I have no clue what you... Like, actually comment what you get offended by. We're going to be going through some of the most infamous and loved historical figures and ranking them on how much aura I believe they have. And I'm going to be giving you some fun facts across a lot of these, because when it comes to history and historical facts, I got type 4 autism and ADHD, and I'm going to be hitting you with things that you never even thought of. So, yeah, no, we're going to be having fun with this one. No long-winded intro here. I have been waiting to talk about this, okay? It wasn't until we actually had a debate over who had more aura, Alexander the Great or Julius Caesar in history, and my brother had the audacity to be like, nah, it's Julius Caesar. Yeah, nah, little bro. It's Alex. We'll get into why that is, but you'll find out in a second. If you like the channel, please consider like, comment, and subscribe. We're on track for 50K by the end of the year. I'm gonna still say subscribe because I really want to get to 50K by the end of the year because one dude commented that wasn't gonna happen. Yeah, no, I'm having generational beef with one person who commented, who's still subscribed, by the way. Like, that's the funniest part. He's probably watching this video right now and is like, I cannot believe he still remembers that. We're getting to 50K by the end of the year to prove that one guy wrong. That's what we're doing. I'll do a special video at the end of the year. Thank you for everybody who continues to watch my content, and let's get into the historical figures aura tier list. Jesus. Yes, we're getting straight into Jesus, bro. He's number one. Like, I actually have a full tier just dedicated to Jesus. Like, I would love to hear somebody dispute that. Like, I don't want to hit the nail on the head too hard here. But, like, even if you're an atheist and you don't believe Jesus was the Son of God, okay? Like, you don't believe he came back from the dead, okay? Like, to be fair, only one of the three Abrahamic faiths actually believe that, and that's Christianity. And I count Catholicism with Christianity just for the sake of keeping it simple here. We can get into Catholicism in another video. But... yeah, no. Just about everybody agrees bro existed. There's not a lot of historians that really words means anything that say, yeah, I don't think Jesus existed. No. We dispute the resurrection. That's the only thing that you guys disagree with. We all think Jesus was a real person. However, I would like to have an argument with you, okay? Because if he is the Son of God, yeah, no, he's 100% in Jesus tier, okay? Like, that's not even under a debate in terms of aura. Brother, he literally invented the idea of aura. If you're taking this from the atheist point of view, this guy is the more peaceful version of Paul Atreides from Dune. This man strolled up into a Judeo-theocracy under the occupation of Rome when Rome was getting into the bloodbath era. His birth was prophesized as the future king of Judah, and the king of Judea at the time was a guy named like Hagrid, Harold. I don't really care what his name was. You wanna know why? Because he was a certified hater. You wanna know what this guy did? Because of the aura of Jesus, or Yahshua, what he would be known as back then, because we'll get into that. He took all of the 2-year-olds that were alive at the time and executed them. The reason why, like, Jesus being born of a virgin is, like, actually very integral to the plot is it was one of the only reasons why Jesus wasn't straight up executed. Why? Because it didn't make sense for Mary to be pregnant because they would have had record of that being the case and they would have killed him at the time. The 3 wise men stroll up because they're like, yo, this guy is the prophesized one. Oh, nicknames. The Redeemer, Jesus of Nazareth, the Chosen One, the Messiah, the Lamb. Like, Christ the Redeemer. All of these emanate so much aura as a nickname that even if you're an atheist, you really can't be a hater, bro. Strolls up to, at the time, is like, occupied Israel by Rome. Goes into there, okay? to the theocracy, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, which were like the top dogs, who were using the faith to not only persecute, but to govern people. This guy, who was already supposed to be executed by the age of 2, strolls into the council and has a full Paul Atreides speech where he starts going, yeah, you guys on Judgment Day are going to be judged the harshest. Because it is one thing claiming ignorance of the Word of God, it is another thing using it to persecute your followers. At this point, bro, they were getting out stones, getting ready to hit him, like kill him out dead at that moment. And you know what this guy decided to do? And why his aura has been etched into history for that millennia to come? Right when he's about to get stoned, they're like, who are you to say this? Do you think you were the man who spoke to King David? Do you think you were the man who spoke to Moses when he led us out of Egypt? This man said, I am. That's where the speech I am comes from. For anybody who doesn't know what that means, the equivalent of that would be I stroll up to a modern theocracy and start talking shit to everybody who's in power and start saying, you don't actually understand what you're saying, bro. You're actually worse than all the people that you persecute. Healed a person on the way up there, saved a prostitute on the way up there too, and said, let those without sin cast the first stone. Strolls in there. Everybody's trying to kill the dude. Somebody pulls out a Glock and starts pointing it at this guy who's saying all this. And he looks at him and says, I'm him, and then walks out. That's effectively what happened. Okay? Like, dude is, from the atheist point of view, keep in mind, I'm looking at it from the atheist point of view. Bro strolls in on a donkey and does all that. Like, come on. I'm sorry. Even if you're a hater, you have to acknowledge how badass that is. I'm sorry. Yeah. 100%. Okay, and now let's go after that. Dude, we count years by the date of his birth. Yeah, you heard of BC? That's before Christ. BCE, they're like before Common Era. Bro, when you have scientists, they can't even argue with how perfect it is to keep time by the date of Jesus' birth, and they have to rename it to BCE, and the reason they have to do BCE is because they didn't want to change it from BC. Come on. Even they're bro, respect. I got nothing else to say. Come on. Yeah. Jesus tier. He's in a tier all by himself. I wanted to get that out there because if I did anybody else first, if I did Jesus at the very end of it, you would be like, yeah, well, we know who's number one. Jesus is in top tier. Even from the atheist point of view, you can't be a generational hater. The fact is, yeah, nah, bro he literally said, I am him. And yeah, no, back when I said Yahshua, his name would have most likely been Yahshua back in the day. You ever heard of, you know why purple is considered royalty? You see, in ancient Rome, they used to have to break in snails to get the dye out of basically minced up snails, and they would make the color purple. Purple was considered a royal color, and normal people weren't allowed to have it because of how expensive it was, and it denoted high class, okay? J was used the same thing. The phonetic for J did not exist in the language at the time, so his name probably wasn't pronounced Jesus, but we pronounced it Jesus after the fact as a sign of respect. We literally made up a new sound to denote how holy this man was. I'm sorry, if that is not absolute aura, I don't know what to tell you, bro. Absolute aura. Genghis Khan. Wow, we went from one side of the spectrum to the other, bro. Genghis Khan. Okay. Nicknames are going to come into play here. I don't know the nicknames for everybody here. However, Genghis Khan has some of the coolest nicknames ever. The Accursed One. The Punishment of Allah. Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan was a nickname. Yeah. His actual name, I think we're 50% sure what his actual name was. We have no clue who his mother was. We really don't know who his brother was. Genghis Khan really just means fierce king. That's what Genghis Khan means, and it was pronounced Genghis, but I'm just going to call him Genghis because it sounds cooler. It's okay. Whatever. Imagine, I want you to think about this. Mongolia had such a crazy generational run that people just forget that exists now because it fell off so bad. Modern Mongolia is like forgetting that Nickelback was a super big rock band. 100%. They were the Nickelback of empires. Actually, not even that, because nobody really hates on Mongolia. Like, I want you to think about this. Mongolia has a massive statue that was built by slaves that they took from the lands that Genghis Khan conquered. Okay? And then nobody talks about it. Bro, we aren't even sure where Genghis Khan was buried because every single person who attended his funeral, Genghis Khan hired an assassin to kill them so nobody would disrespect his tomb. We have no clue where Genghis Khan was buried. We have all sorts of stories of him strolling up to the Middle East, strolling down to China. Like, dude, we aren't even sure how many people he killed. The only way that we have any measure of, like, a loss of life at the time was by looking at the literal carbon footprint of the fucking Earth. If that is not such a crazy run that you went on, that we have no clue how many people you did in, so we have to count by the amount of fucking carbon is in the atmosphere at the time, that's insane. Like, that's crazy how many people had to get done in. It's estimated that it would take around 10% of the population had to get killed on Earth in order to get that same amount. The descriptions of people fighting the Mongols, okay, is absolutely insane. Like, they would describe that after a battlefield with the Mongols, the swamps would be turned yellow by all of the human fat that would be burning on the ground. There's a story of, like, a Chinese merchant leaving China and then coming back after the Mongolian Crusades. And they would look at, like, these hills in the distance. They would think they were snow-peaked mountains. No, they were the burned remains of the Chinese soldiers fighting the Mongols. The Mongols were a generational threat that had such a Michael Jordan-ass run that they fell off so bad that people forget Mongolia is still around. Mongolia, and first off, Genghis was ahead of the time. He would just recruit the strongest soldiers from whatever army he was fighting if they were into it. He would let them worship their own gods. He would let them engineer for him. Like, the Mongols discovered black powder weapons, and they really just didn't use them as much as they should, and they were like, nah, horse archers are more overpowered. Oh, that's another thing. Listen, probably a few of you guys have noticed I wear a lot of, like, Vortex stuff. I'm big into archery. I love it. The Mongols were such a generational threat. It was a 120-pound pull on their bow, and they were so accurate on horseback that there was muscle deterioration in their legs because they would be on horseback for so long. And not just that, the muscle on their backs when they were pulling back bows was so defined that when we find, like, corpses of Mongolian soldiers, do you know how we know that they were horseback archers? Because the muscle on their back was so dense, it got preserved and mummified different than a normal human. Mongols were quite literally just built different when it came to archery. Oh, and for anybody who doesn't know, the standard draw weight on a modern bow is 70 pounds. They were pulling back 120. Dude, a 70-pound bow will shoot an arrow, and that might go through you. If the arrow was still inside you, it was pinning you against whatever wall you were up against. That is how powerful most armor doesn't even work against it at that point because it's so much pressure in such a small area. The Mongols were such a terrifying S tier. Bro, your nickname was the Accursed One, and the only reason that people were, like, okay living back then is they had to convince themselves that you were a myth. Imagine being so scary that people had to convince themselves that you weren't real. Terrifying. People just talk about Genghis Khan like he wasn't a terrible human. No, he was evil too. How they described Genghis was he was a giant with the eyes of a tiger. Dog, what? Craziness. S tier. Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great holds a very strange record, okay? I'm not going to talk... Actually, I am going to talk about... Bro was undefeated his entire life. Bro, imagine getting an army at 18 years old, growing up in what would be modern-day Baghdad, and you raise an army, and you go undefeated that you had 18 wars where you conquered land before the age of 30, and you were undefeated at the time. And they think he suffered from, like, a really rare form of narcolepsy because they think he got buried alive. Yeah. So Alexander the Great died in one of the most, like, anticlimactic ways of all time. He just, like, became unresponsive and they buried him alive. Yeah, no, they're pretty certain that Alexander the Great was buried in the ground and they just left him. So terrifying end, but bro went on such a crazy run that the God Emperor from Warhammer is literally just Alexander the Great, but like older. Yeah, no, oh, and that strange stat that he holds, he is the only dude beside Jesus Christ that is brought up in all three Abrahamic faiths books. Yes, Alexander the Great is brought up by name in versions of the Bible, the Torah, and the Quran. If that is not absolute aura, where you are the only other person that has ever done that is Jesus, I'm sorry, that's badass. Like, there's just no other way to say it. Alexander the Great set the foundation for what would become the world of Greece, what would later set the foundation of what would become Rome, what Rome would later set the foundation of what would become the British Empire, and what the British Empire would later set the foundation of the American Empire. So, Alexander the Great, through the butterfly effect, inadvertently caused what modern-day society were to become. Our ideas of democracy and republics come from the Greek and Roman empires, respectively. I say not Greek Empire, but it was like the Greek AIDS. Beat the Athenians, beat the Spartans. Bro was him. Bro was actually him. Beat the Persians. Like, nah, he was him. There's just no other way. Imagine being so filled with aura that your nickname is what you get known as. Alexander the Great. There's just nothing else to say. S tier, at the same level of Genghis Khan, beneath Jesus. I think that's fair. George Washington. Listen, I'm a filthy American. I would be considered a European mutt. However, George Washington is our fucking guy, okay? George Washington was a 6'3", red-headed man with fake teeth and spoke what was described as, "We gotta have to fucking get him. These fucking redcoats, man. What is it? It's Christmas? Fuck it. Cross the Delaware River." But sir, the Delaware River is frozen. Shut the fuck up. Like that's essentially what was going on. And yes, the reason I'm speaking like this is that's how they would describe him. Like they called him Mad George. Imagine being 5'7", because that was the normal height back then because everybody was starving. And you have to go to war with a 6'3" red-headed crazy person, and it's Christmas morning, and the British people are like, there is no possible way that these crazy continental hillbilly living in the mountains people with their probably crazy leader Mad George is gonna cross the frozen Delaware River and fight us on Christmas morning. Like, come on, nobody does that. Meanwhile, George Washington not only crossing the Delaware River, but standing on it where if he were to fell off, he would have just died out of hypothermia, because back then they would just do bloodletting for the simplest of things, which is how he died, by the way. Gotta get the fucking Reddit! Like, bro! George Washington was a crazy person, okay? America was founded by crazy people, and people are surprised we're also crazy people. You were descendants of savages. And I mean that. The only reason, I've said this a lot, the only reason that your bloodline was able to survive is somebody in your bloodline was so much of a crazy person, he was throwing 1-2s on a saber-toothed cat. We're all crazy. You have that dog in you. You just gotta wake them up, dog. Listen, yeah, George Washington, first president of the United States, okay? Yeah. I understand not a perfect human. That's not what I'm saying. I think B tier is valid. B tier is valid. Yes, I'm not going to put him in A. Actually, I am going to put him in A. I think he's going to be an A- because there are some people that just go absolutely hard on here. I got to do that. I'm sorry, I got to do that. Michael Jackson. I know we have skipped such a crazy amount of time. However, we've covered 3 conquerors and literally Jesus Christ. So I want to talk about Michael Jackson. To give you an idea of how big Michael Jackson was, in the modern day of music, where music is bigger than it's ever been, ever, if the biggest artist in the world at the time was Drake, okay? Drake said he's the Michael Jackson of our time, and literally everybody around him said, "You ain't nothing, little bro. Michael Jackson is better than any of us could ever be." That tells me how great Michael Jackson was like Imagine the music world if Drake, Kendrick Lamar, and everybody that they're around didn't exist, and all you really had to listen to back then was like country music, back when country music was just thug rap. Also, yeah, I'm gonna rant about music really quick. I think it is one of the most disingenuous gripes with rap culture when we look at rap music and they're like, I put the blicky on the 9, brr, brr, up a gas station. Like, I understand, yeah, that's criminal activity. You know what old country music was? I walked into the gas station, I saw that fucker dead. Like, bro, that's what the music was. Like, these were crazy people again. Dude, old country music wasn't just, I drove a truck, got with a girl, she's into traditional values. Back then, it was, I killed a man in San Francisco. That's a real song title. It's a country song. Yeah, so, I'm sorry, when people are saying, I listen to country music because I like traditional values, country music was the genre of outlaws. It very simply was. Now, where was I? Oh yeah, Michael Jackson. Yeah, that's what you had, and then now Michael Jackson starts going, Billie Jean is not my lover. Like, Billie Jean, Thriller. Listen, was he maybe into children? We don't know. Maybe, maybe not. However, Thriller night. Like, I'm sorry, Thriller's an objective banger. I don't care. It's kind of like how people are turning on Kanye. Listen, do I endorse some of the crazy shit that Kanye is saying? Absolutely not. However, he made Graduation. Like, what else do you want me to say? Like, you gotta learn how to separate the art from the artist. Wait until you find out the crazy shit that Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla did. Albert Einstein was a fiend back in the day, dog. Friendly reminders here. Michael Jackson. Musical aura was untouchable. He would little bro Drake and Kendrick Lamar in the same day. Y'all forget. I understand he looked freaky when he got older. However, he's him. I'm gonna put Michael Jackson B tier. B tier. And as far as like you're not even a conqueror and you're being put in B tier, that's a valid thing to say. And understand, yeah, that's what we're ranking up against. Michael Jackson just appeared in the same video as Jesus H. Christ. Like, yeah, nah, I gotta put him in B. Fairly. Napoleon Bonaparte. When I put up the community post of who should be on this video, I had coffee right before this, if you can't tell. I actually do want to tell you the amount of caffeine I consume before these videos, because I do this all in one take. Yeah, so anybody who's curious, there's no script here. It is just me yapping about everything in this video. The only things that I cut out is when I go too far on a rant. Yeah, no, it is an ungodly amount of caffeine I consume for this. That's for a different video. Napoleon Bonaparte. Somebody commented something on the community page that I thought was really funny. Napoleon was such a menace that countries would go to war with France, not because they disliked France, but because they wanted to go to the war with Napoleon. Napoleon Bonaparte, okay? Imagine being such a menace that you... Brother, there's a series of wars named after you. I want you to think about that. The Napoleonic Wars. Napoleon was such a savage that we named wars after him. Okay? Bro was probably 5'8", okay? When everybody was 5'8", and he was still kicking ass. Like, I'm sorry. There needs to be more representation for my Sork Kings out there. What do you guys have right now? Tom Cruise and Ilya Topuria. You guys don't really have much when it comes to representation. But one thing they can never take away from my Sork Kings is King Leonidas was most likely 5'8", and Napoleon motherfucking Bonaparte. He is your guy. Napoleon Bonaparte, okay, strolls into Russia, starts conquering Russia, runs a fade with every European country in existence at the time, goes down to Egypt, maybe blows the nose off the Sphinx, but we do know he shot a cannon at something there, and we aren't really sure the damages. Comes back to France, there's a revolution, they take him out, put him on an island where he's essentially the king of. Bro gets pissed off, leaves the island, reconquers France, goes to war again, and then they lock him on a prison again. Imagine being such a menace that you are effectively the king of a country. They put you in jail on what... Dude, let me tell you what the equivalent of this would be. Imagine if the president caused so many wars but he won all of them, that the people took him out of power and just gave him the entirety of Hawaii to conquer. And he just owned Hawaii, and then he got so angry because people were making fun of him that he, with just the people on Hawaii, came back and was able to conquer Washington, D.C. That's effectively how badass Napoleon Bonaparte was. Him! A tier. I would put Napoleon Bonaparte at the same level as George Washington in terms of aura. Maybe that's my American bias. My European brothers, you can tell me if I'm wrong or not. I think a lot of you guys are going to say some mean stuff to me. Albert Einstein, the father of modern science, the creator of the theory of general relativity. Let me tell you how badass this guy was, okay? Albert Einstein was a Jewish man in 1930s Germany, okay? And this is how you know you're good. When Germany is like, hey, oh, you're one of the good ones. Don't imagine getting that letter. Imagine being a Jewish guy in 1930s Germany, and you get a letter that says, hey, oh, bro, I understand we're doing some bad stuff, but, like, you're one of the good ones, though. Like, absolutely crazy work back in the day, okay? That's all I'm saying. Now, Albert Einstein wrote up a calculation for how the universe works. I forget what it was. I think it was about like how light works as a wave, how light works as a particle and not a wave. This is above my feel free to fact check this. I heard this from Neil deGrasse Tyson. He said that Albert Einstein had a calculation that was so crazy to how science would work in quantum mechanics that he erased it because he said there's absolutely no way that's true because that would change all of our understanding. 30 years later, we were actually able to prove that he was right. Dude, the one fuck up that Albert Einstein had in his calculations was something that the only reason he erased it because he refused to believe that he was that smart. Albert Einstein is the father of modern science. He's him, quantum mechanics guy, also helped making in the nuclear bomb. I mean, like, that's a 50-50. I'm gonna be real with you, that's a 50-50. Oh, however, bro proved it worked, didn't he? Unpopular opinion. Every single scientist needs to make a weapon to make sure that our money's going somewhere. I'm kidding. I am kidding. That would be kind of funny. Imagine if, like, Isaac Newton had to make a catapult to prove that gravity actually does exist. Like, that'd be kind of funny. I'd be curious to see what they made. Albert Einstein, I'm going to put him, because of his competition, in D tier. He has a lot of competition that we're going to have to get into here. And I'm sorry, Albert Einstein, but you made the historical aura tier list, so I got to be fair to him. Fidel Castro. Listen here, man. Fidel Castro is going to come up in the dictators tier list. However, I'm still working through it. There's a few lesser-known dictators, and I'm debating whether I put kings on it, because kings are, like, a more formal dictator. You guys tell me, do you guys consider kings dictators? General question. Go in the comment section. Fidel Castro used to be, well, the military dictator over Cuba. Let me tell you something right now, bro. Fidel Castro was most likely a CIA operative that turned on the CIA and used the same tactics that we taught him to install a military dictatorship in Cuba. We tried to kill this motherfucker so many times. I could make a full video going over, I think it's 63 assassination attempts that we tried to do on Fidel Castro. Let me see, what else we tried to blow up one of his Cuban cigars. We tried to put a cyanide needle in his hat. We tried to make a balding cream for him because they said that if Fidel Castro didn't have a beard, there was a chance that there would be a government coup. I'm not kidding you. If you ever think that the American government can't become petty, let me remind you that we were losing a war in Vietnam, so what did we do? We faked vampire attacks. So yeah, the American government gets really petty when we get desperate. We tried to cut his beard off. My favorite one of all time is that the CIA recruited one of his ex-lovers to assassinate him, and everything was going good. We gave her a weapon, we gave her an alibi, we gave her a plane that she could get out if she needed to, and the former lover invites him over, okay? And they get into a little argument. And we are, at this point, I assume we are screaming into her mouthpiece, "Fucking kill him!" And then this chick takes out the earpiece and is like, "I just wanted to get close to you." And then they fuck. Fidel Castro had so much aura, he kept on sleeping with the assassins that we sent at him. And when we talked to her afterwards, she said, I couldn't help myself. Dog, Fidel was rocking unbelievable riz, dog. Craziness. C tier. I think C tier is valid. C tier is valid. Just for that, bro, he is getting Was it? Yeah, I think it was him or it was Pablo Escobar that was getting hunted by the American government, and then he traveled to the White House and took a picture right outside. I'm sorry, that's badass. There's just no telling me that's not. Imagine getting hunted by the American government and taking a fucking selfie outside their house. That's next level of disrespect right there. Oh, you don't want me running up on your block? Well, guess what? I'm right outside your home. Like, I'm sorry, that's badass, man. Vlad the Impaler. Vlad Dracula. Listen, man. If you're one of the people that didn't realize that Vlad the Impaler is Count Dracula, and that he's actually more badass than what you think he was, let me just tell you something. Him being a vampire was a form of psychological warfare that just stuck around because of how badass he was. So, Vlad Dracula was the son of a guy named Dracula. I forget what his name was, but his last name was. Dracula was the count of a place called Wallachia, and Wallachia was just north of a empire called Bulgaria. And the Bulgarians were pissed off at the Wallachians, which, to give you an example of size, Wallachia is like a quarter of the size of Detroit. Maybe. Actually, maybe the size of Detroit. Let's say the size of Detroit. And Dracula runs a fade with the Bulgarians, and the Bulgarians whoop his ass and then take his son's hostage. The reason that they did that is they wanted to teach his children how to govern, and they can be like basically a puppet king for the Bulgarians. And then Dracula said, fuck them kids, torture them if you want, I could just make another one. Bro pulled an Omni-Man. And then Dracula goes back to Wallachia and then proceeds to run a fade with the, Dracula goes back to Wallachia, runs a fade with the Bulgarians again, and at this point the Bulgarians are like, bro, what the fuck, man? How does he keep on getting away with this? This dude's more evil than us. And we invented new methods of torture. So what are we going to do? Are we going to torture his kids? No. However, we're going to make an example. So what they would do is they would torture people in front of Vlad and his brother. I don't even know what his name was. I'm sorry. But Vlad's the main character here, so we're going to talk about him. So Vlad grew up with the Bulgarians, and he was taught all methods of warfare, governing, torture. That's something for foreshadowing. And Vlad learned all of this. And what did he do? So the Bulgarians were going to use him as essentially a double agent. They were going to send Vlad against his brother Dracula. His father Dracula. This is before Vlad was known as the Impaler, or Dracula. We'll get into it. So Vlad gets sent against his father. They work together to fight the Bulgarians. And then Vlad betrays his father and kills him. And there he announces, I am Vlad Dracula. So, do you know what Dracula means? Son of the dragon. This motherfucker was trained by the Bulgarian torturers and like strategists at the time, which were very ahead of their time. Goes to his father, betrays his father, and calls himself Vladimir, the son of the dragon. That is one of the most Targaryen-ass names I've ever heard. So, Vladimir Dracula. And then the Bulgarians come up to him and they're like, Vlad! Thank you for doing what you did. You will be a count. You will be known as Count Vlad Dracula. You have taken your father's name and you will be known as a Bulgarian count and we will treat you with respect. What do you think Vladimir did literally right after that? Fuck you, Bulgarian dogs. Immediately ran a fade with the Bulgarians, talking about how Wallachia will remain Christian. And starts impaling the infidels who are coming into his country. And it got to the point that the Bulgarians, witnessing a new level of savage, the Bulgarians invented new forms of torture because they wanted to get creative. That's what they were dealing with. And they looked at Vladimir, and they called him Vladimir the Impaler. Because what he would do is he would cut the branches off trees and impale man from their butt all the way up to their mouths and just stretch them over tree branches. And he would do it on the border of Wallachia. And that was basically just to say, run a fade with Malakia, I will impale you on a fucking tree. Vladimir was a demon, okay? And then him being known as a vampire, I think at that time it was called a Striga, which was essentially just a demon. Yes, they, as a form of, like, psychological warfare, just called him a demon. Like, I'm sorry, Vladimir had aura out the wazoo. Above Michael Jackson, B+, okay? Imagine, no. A minus. You want to know why? Imagine being such a savage in life. Their only logical explanation is that you're a fucking vampire. That's badass. Vlad the Impaler also goes unnecessarily hard, and his name was quite literally Vladimir the Son of the Dragon. Again, aura. Nicknames out the wazoo. Muhammad Ali. Let me tell you something, a crazy fact about Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali's real name was Cletus Clay. Converts to Islam, goes under Muhammad Ali, and then proceeds to go on a crazy run where he beats up George Foreman, who also came back later in life and I think beat Joe Frazier? But for anybody where these names mean absolutely nothing, Muhammad Ali essentially came into boxing, reinvented himself, and beat the heavyweight champion as a very light dude. Now, don't get me wrong. Muhammad Ali kind of fell off near the tail end of his career, as in all fighters, okay? Conor McGregor almost made this list, but that maybe I'll make it part 2. Muhammad Ali, okay? Whenever somebody says, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, that is a direct reference to Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali also was a guy who, revolutionized how fight promoting and trash talk worked. That's just how big Muhammad Ali was as a person. Revolutionized boxing, was a cultural figure. Brother, America was going to war with Vietnam, and to go against it, Muhammad Ali quit boxing to dodge the draft because he didn't want to kill any of his brothers in faith. And people had the audacity to call him a draft dodger. No, Muhammad Ali was just him, dog. Listen, took time out of the prime of his career just for being like a social thing. I respect the dude. You have to respect him. Is also the the first boxer ever to get a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. However, didn't get it put on the Walk of Fame. He got it put on the Wall of Fame. You want to know why? Well, there's two rumors. The reason that Muhammad Ali's star is not on the ground and instead hung up is 2 reasons. 1, no man who can't beat me gets to walk over my name, which, I'm sorry, is badass. And 2, because his name is Muhammad Ali, he believed it was a holy name and that no man should step over it and instead should look to it. Again, badass. I'm putting Muhammad Ali at the same level as Michael Jackson. Actually, because I'm biased when it comes to combat sports, I'm going to put him above Michael Jackson. I think that's fair. Miyamoto Musashi, one of the greatest swordsmen to ever live in China. Have you ever heard of the Book of 5 Rings? That was essentially his way of thinking. And he actually does have a very interesting theology. Because how he looks at things is that everything has its own season. A man who wants to become a great warrior first has to be a great carpenter. A man who wants to be a great carpenter has to be a great gardener. There is a time for planting flowers, there is a time for building houses, and there is a time for using a blade. There is no difference between a general in war and a carpenter building a house. Each of them have weapons for war or weapons for building. He had a very interesting way of looking at things that if you haven't read the Book of 5 Rings, which is very interesting, maybe I'll talk about it one day. Miyamoto Musashi also would just stroll up to places and just beat the fuck out of people because they said that they were better than him. There's a story of him fighting like this nobleman's son who was like training in swordsmanship. And this guy was apparently such an asshole that Miyamoto Musashi, half drunk, rode up to the castle and they refused to give him a sword. So what he did is with a little pocket knife, made a wooden katana and then dueled this nobleman's kid and then just beat him to death. Miyamoto Musashi was a monster, okay? But a monster in a way where it was respectable. I never lost a duel. Like, that dude, he was him. He was him, okay? He had a few pupils, and this is how we know about Miyamoto Musashi. He's him, has a whole manga. I'm going to put Miyamoto Musashi at the same level of Fidel Castro in terms of aura. Evil Mustache Man. I was thinking about this, bro. Evil Mustache Man is like real-life Voldemort. He's the only dude where you really can't say his name on anything social because you risk it getting flagged. Isn't that kind of crazy that we just have a real-life Voldemort? Like, all I'm going to say is this, okay? It's illegal in America to name your kid Messiah or Jesus, okay? It is also illegal to name your kid Evil Mustache Man's name, okay? Like, that's all. That's a stat that Evil Mustache Man has. He's the reason that people view Germany in a negative light. He's the reason that people kind of look at France and say they're a bitch. There's a reason that they look at the UK and they're like, you're a good person, even though you did a lot of the same things that Evil Mustache Man did historically. So we're not going to go there. But Evil Mustache Man, like, here's the thing, bro. He is our Voldemort. Like, I'm sorry. If we're going to talk about aura, there is negative aura and then there's positive aura. Like, if I show you a picture of Evil Mustache Man, you're like, yeah, evil dude. Like, that's the aura that he denotes. I think you have to put Evil Mustache Man, if we're going to be fair here, in the same level of a George. I would actually put him as equal to George Washington in terms of aura. I think that's fair. I really do. I do think that's fair in how we talk about them. Like, come on. I can't even bring up his name. Like, bro is Voldemort. Okay? Julius Caesar. Yes. To connect it back to the reason I'm making this video, my brother said that he thinks Julius Caesar has more aura than Alexander. No, he doesn't. Listen, Alexander the Great was such a badass that Julius Caesar, when he was visiting a town in what was going to become Rome, came back to it in his mid-30s and started crying at the sight of it because he said, how can I ever compare? I'm 35 and I haven't conquered anywhere. And by the time that Alexander was my age, he already conquered 10 kingdoms. Like, how am I going to beat that? Like, imagine being that, having such a hard man crush on another man, that at the sight of his statue, you literally start bawling your eyes out and say, how am I supposed to compare to this? Like, come on, bro. Like, Alexander was him. He was, like, Alexander the Great. Julius Caesar was jealous of Alexander because he felt that he couldn't compare to him. Like, imagine if LeBron James, whenever he was asked about Michael Jordan, started going, how am I supposed to beat that? Like, that's essentially what happened. Like, come on, dude. It's not comparable. Julius, yeah, did set the foundation of Rome. However, they assassinated him. They would never do my king, Alexander, like that. Which, I mean, like, actually, I'm going to take that back. Yeah, imagine being such a menace that your most trusted advisors have to be the one to do it. And Julius Caesar was such a badass that they just named all their king Caesar because they really liked the name. Well, it was actually Kaiser, when how they would pronounce it. But, yeah, Caesar for, yeah. Yeah, Julius Caesar was him, don't get me wrong, but I'm putting Julius Caesar in number 4, okay? It's Jesus, Alexander the Great or Genghis Khan, and Julius Caesar. And then everybody else is vying later. Yeah, nah, that's just how we're going to do it. And that is the historical figures aura tier list. I know this was a random video, but that's why you watch this channel. It really is Ethan on everything over here. And if you like this channel, please consider a like, comment, and subscribe. Recommend this to somebody who you think would enjoy it. And if you disagree with me or want a part 2, put somebody in the comment section that you think should have made an appearance. I know there's a lot. But hey, 50K subscribers by the end of the year. We're on track to do it because of you guys. And with all that out of the way, I hope you have a great day, and I will see you all in the next video. Adios, guys.